Hello, I'm Esther Githo-Ewart. It's Tuesday, February 8th. This is Africa 54.
Cyclone Batsirai kills at least 21 and leaves homes and lives in ruin in Madagascar. A new report from the United Nations shines a light on severe hunger conditions in the Horn of Africa. And a closer look at efforts to produce COVID vaccines in Africa to make more doses available locally.
Residents of a coastal town in Madagascar that was battered by Cyclone Batsirai are sifting through the rubble of their homes to see if there's anything worth salvaging. Cyclone Batsirai killed at least 21 people and displaced more than 60,000 after it slammed into the Indian Ocean island nation late Saturday. Powerful winds knocked down houses and electricity lines along the southeastern coastline until it moved away late Sunday. The cyclone also destroyed crops of rice, fruits and vegetables that were close to being harvested, deepening a food shortage in an area that was already struggling with severe drought, according to the United Nations Food Aid Agency. In Mananjari, one of the worst affected towns, many houses are destroyed. Residents of a coastal town in Madagascar, the UN World Food Programme says 13 million people across the Horn of Africa are facing severe hunger. The world's largest humanitarian organization focused on hunger and food security is calling for immediate assistance to avoid a repeat of a famine a decade ago that killed hundreds of thousands of people. 3 failed rainy seasons have created the driest conditions since the 1980s, with forecasts of below-average rainfall set to increase suffering in the coming months. The conditions have decimated livestock, forcing thousands of people in a region where many are farmers into displacement camps. The drought is also spreading to parts of Kenya, south-central Somalia and Eritrea. The UN Children's Agency is warning that many children will die or suffer from lifelong cognitive or physical damage if immediate action is not taken to avoid famine. Thousands of Sudanese marched against military rule Monday in Khartoum and other cities. Some demonstrators are voicing concern about the return to government of members of the ousted regime of ex-President Omar al-Bashir. Security forces in Khartoum repeatedly fired rounds of tear gas to block protesters as they tried to reach the presidential palace, eventually stopping them more than a kilometer away from the building, according to a witness account from Reuters. Some people were injured and bleeding while others fainted and were carried away on motorcycles. Large protests have continued despite a crackdown that has killed at least 79 and injured more than 2,000, according to medics aligned with the protest movement. To highlight the continuing effects of landmines in South Sudan, officials from the UN Mine Action Service, UNMAS, and Sarah Besalon Yanti, a United Nations humanitarian coordinator, visited Gondokoro, an area on the outskirts of Juba. The visit underscores the work of deminers. On the day of the visit, mechanical and manual mine clearance teams showed a controlled explosion. The humanitarian coordinator highlighted the need for communities to help identify where mines and unexploded devices were laid during the conflict. UNMAS and the National Mine Action Authority work diligently every day to clear unexploded devices and mines. Tunisia's main Western donors are voicing deep concern at the president's move to dissolve a body tasked with ensuring judicial independence after he seized wide powers last year in a move critics call a coup. President Kais Saied announced his declaration to abolish the Supreme Judicial Council on Sunday, an action the body rejected as illegal and an attempt to undermine the independence of judges. The head of the council, Youssef Bouzakar, told Reuters on Tuesday that its members are defying Said's push to close it down and are discussing via email their next steps to oppose the move. Ambassadors to Tunisia from the G7 group of wealthy democracies say a transparent, independent and efficient judiciary and the separation of powers are essential for a functioning democracy that serves its people. Nigeria is launching a 62 billion naira fund as part of the measures towards sustaining its HIV response, as well as address killer diseases and public health emergencies. President Muhammadu Buhari, who launched the HIV Trust Fund, is promising to continue to prioritize health interventions. Gloria Umezioke of Affiliate Channels TV has more.
The president's call for renewed global action to end the HIV/AIDS pandemic has undoubtedly generated renewed responses across the board. Luminaries of Nigeria's private sector, including Africa's richest businessman, Alhaji Aliko Dangote, among others, converge on the State House for the launch of a 62.1 billion naira trust fund to expand domestic investments in HIV epidemic control.
We have continued to make good our commitment of placing more people living with HIV on treatment annually using national resources. However, strong domestic resources mobilization with an enduring partnership and shared responsibility is required to sustain the response to HIV and other emerging public health emergencies. I hope the HIV Trust Fund of Nigeria will galvanize more of the private sector and others partners to surpass the target of 62 billion naira in the next 5 years.
Currently, a total of 1.7 million Nigerians are living with HIV, while 1.6 million of that figure are on treatment.
Our national coverage of prevention of mother-to-child transmission is less than 50%, leading to about 22,000 cases of new mother-to-child transmission of HIV every year in the country. Securing a financing mechanism to guarantee a generation of HIV-free babies is the basis of today's launch.
The NACA DG concludes that Nigeria is on a fast-track lane to control HIV by 2023, albeit international partners currently contributing about 80% of HIV funds agree that there is an urgent need to scale up domestic funding as Nigeria leads with the highest number of HIV infection among children.
The United States remains committed to supporting Nigeria in reaching and sustaining HIV epidemic control, but we also believe that national ownership is critical to its success. The next phase of our game plan is to sustain these gains by ensuring that funding gaps are filled to keep people living with HIV on treatment.
The United Nations had earlier asserted that the COVID-19 may push back progress on HIV by a decade, but also shares the optimism that crystallizing a domestic financing mechanism can halt the mother-to-child transmission of the virus by 2030. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
The World Health Organization says more than 8 billion doses of COVID vaccine have been distributed worldwide, but only about 3% have been sent to Africa. Observers say unequal distribution of vaccines is to blame for the vaccine gap between the African continent and wealthy nations. Efforts are underway to produce COVID vaccines in Africa to make more doses available locally. In Senegal, the Institut Pasteur of Dakar aims to produce 300 million doses of vaccines a year, targeting COVID and other diseases. Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Mudu spoke with Dr. Amadou Sall, the CEO of Institut Pasteur of Dakar, on the Institute's COVID vaccine development efforts.
Institut Pasteur of Dakar is one of the leading biomedical research and public health institute in Africa. And as such, since the beginning of the COVID, we have been involved in capacity building in manufacturing, in research. We have trained at the very beginning 25 countries and make sure like through those 25 countries have the capacity to do diagnostics. It has been really helpful to set foundation in all the country to develop some network and to help testing in general under the leadership of African Union, WHO, and WAHO. The second important aspect where we've been working is really also supporting other countries in line with this capacity building. And today we're supporting 13 different countries in sequencing and making sure that the different variants circulating in Africa are also being actually characterized so we can follow up on the epidemics. And today, we are actually made available several COVID-19 antigen tests that is available and being used on a routine basis in Africa. The third thing is really when it comes to research. Institut Pasteur of Dakar has been involved in research, trying to understand how the virus evolved over time. Lastly, we are working in coordination to tackle the vaccination problems. Institut Pasteur of Dakar has this vaccine manufacturing project called Madiba. But the purpose is really to build a platform to make sure that we can deliver COVID vaccine within the pandemic and at the same time getting ready to do other vaccine for mid and long-term impact in Africa.
In the early onset of the pandemic, many different organization groups and companies work on vaccine production, but we have not yet seen one from the Institut Pasteur, which has the capacity to produce vaccines. So what has been the situation?
Institut Pasteur is one of the vaccine manufacturers, the only in Africa that is WHO pre-qualified for the work they've been doing since 1966 and way before for WHO, and making sure we have a vaccine that is WHO pre-qualified. So meaning that expertise has been leveraged by African Union, Africa CDC to be able actually to support and build capacity in Africa to make COVID vaccine available. And this came really from the inequity that happened when it comes to vaccine delivery and vaccination in general in Africa. So that project has been built with different partners in the consortium. We have some development financial institutions like IFC, World Bank, KfW for Germany, AFD from France, or DFC from the US. One other thing that we've been doing is working with key stakeholders like CEPI to help actually deliver the project from the point of view on the technical perspective, from the regulatory perspective, and also bringing some expertise and helping the whole project actually to be landed. Our perspective is to be able to start making vaccines so fill and finish this year, and also make sure within the next 2-3 years, we will be able to finalize a platform where we can do end-to-end manufacturing, and not only of COVID vaccine, but also for other vaccines that are relevant for our expanded program of immunization, for children immunization.
Now, COVID vaccine development has put on the map the messenger RNA technology, while a more traditional approach has been utilized by some vaccine manufacturers. What is the approach with the vaccine made by Institut Pasteur Dakar when it comes to COVID, and why?
When we talk about the technology, actually, Institut Pasteur Dakar has been in a position to build a platform that can do different technology, including messenger RNA. Messenger RNA as one of the technology that would may be important for the future and have a lot of advantage to build new vaccines and bring new vaccine for Africa has been one of the targets. And that's why we have this collaboration and partnership with BioNTech. But also we are pursuing some other vaccine technology, like the one we're using right now for yellow fever, which is based on eggs, but also looking for other technology like viral vector to be able to deliver the best vaccine that would exist not only for COVID, but for others.
What are the main takeaways from this pandemic for the Institut Pasteur of Dakar?
Africa has to be self-sufficient when it comes to epidemics, and particularly in the field of commodities, and make sure that we can provide a tool that would guarantee our health security in the continent. And it means that being able actually to manufacture diagnostic and to manufacture vaccine to get started, but also therapeutics. The second important aspect is really the need of coordination between African countries. Africa has to make sure over time it can rely on its own capacities and build a capacity that exists here. And the last thing is for the future, it's very important that we get ready and prepare now, because what we can see from the pandemic is that it may have a huge impact in terms of the development, the economy, the human capital, and making sure that we get ready in the future for that is, for me, very, very important.
Dr. Amadou Sall, thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
That was Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Mudu speaking with Dr. Amadou Sall, the CEO of Institut Pasteur of Dakar. We would like to hear what you think about Africa 54. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, the Sierra Leonean president appoints a brand global football ambassador. We'll have a report. But first, Hedy Adams tells us about a special Straight Talk Africa program coming up on Wednesday.
Welcome to this Town Hall edition of Straight Talk Africa. Join me, Hedy Adams, on a Voice of America Town Hall special as we discuss the coronavirus pandemic. Where will it take us next? We'll hear from global experts and from our audiences across the African continent on the challenges and opportunities as we navigate life during COVID-19, the virus, variants, and vaccines. All that on the next Straight Talk Africa.
Millions of people worldwide enjoy drinking coffee, but their daily caffeine fix could be under threat because climate change is killing coffee plants. As Henry Ridgwell reports, scientists in London are working with farmers in Africa to find a solution.
Outside the vast glass houses at London's Kew Botanic Gardens, the temperature is below freezing. Inside, the heat and humidity replicate a tropical jungle. Aaron Davis leads Kew's research into coffee.
This is Arabica coffee, our preferred coffee, the one we drink in high streets and at home. It has a superior taste. And this coffee provides us with about 60% of the coffee that we drink globally. The other species over here is Robusta coffee. So this has a slightly larger leaf. This coffee provides us with the other 40% of the world's coffee supply.
The cultivation of Arabica and Robusta coffee beans supports millions of livelihoods across Africa, South America and Asia. But they're under threat because of climate change.
In some cases, yields are dramatically reduced because of increased temperatures or reduced rainfall. But in some cases, as we've seen in Ethiopia, you might get a complete harvest failure and death of the trees.
The solution could be growing deep in the forests of West Africa. There are around 130 species of coffee plant, but not all taste good. In Sierra Leone, Davis and his team identified one candidate growing in the wild, Stenophylla.
And this is extremely heat tolerant and is an interesting species because it matches Arabica in terms of its superb taste.
A further 2 coffee species also show promise for commercial cultivation in a changing climate, Liberica and Eugeniades.
That has low yields and very small beans, but it has an amazing taste.
Some believe the taste is far superior. At the 2021 World Barista Championships in Milan, Australia's Hugh Kelly won 3rd prize with his Eugeniades espresso.
Today you'll taste pink guava, fresh pineapple, and passion fruit.
Researchers hope Kelly's success could be the breakthrough moment for these relatively unknown beans. The team at Kew Botanic Gardens is working with farmers in Africa on cultivating the new coffees commercially. Catherine Kiwuka oversees the projects in Uganda.
What requirements do they need? How do we boost its productivity? Instead of it being dominated by only 2 species, we have the opportunity to tap into the value of other coffee species.
It's hoped that substantial volumes of Liberica coffee will be exported from Uganda to Europe this year. Researchers hope it will provide a sustainable income for farmers and an exciting new taste for coffee drinkers. Henry Ridgewell for VOA News, London.
In eastern Ukraine, tensions over the threat of a Russian invasion continue to rise, although in the eastern city of Avdiivka, along the front lines facing Kremlin-backed separatists, the war has not ceased since 2014. Ricardo Marquina traveled there and has this report narrated by Elizabeth Chanev.
Ukrainian soldiers lead us through the maze of trenches. Here, the Ukrainian troops have become stronger after years of battle against the separatists, supported and armed by Moscow. Barely 50 meters away, the enemy is also watching us. As the soldiers who serve here see it, the war is against Russia, and the very survival of Ukraine is at stake.
There has been talk of a possible invasion for a long time. We are in our land. We do not intend to leave it.
Despite the almost daily exchange of fire on this line of contact, Ukrainian forces consider the situation under control.
Ситуація стабільна, контрольована.
The situation is stable. It is under control. If the enemy begins an escalation of the conflict, we will be ready for any change in the scenario.
This position is in the town of Avdiivka, which endured heavy fighting during the early days of the war 8 years ago. Now the population lives in fear of an escalation. This is the city's military supplies store, which opened before the war. We spoke with the owner, Natalia, who, like all the residents, asked to withhold her surname. She confesses that she fears a new, full-fledged conflict.
People are nervous, worried, especially because we're in this area. I would not want a new war.
For residents of this town, which still bears the scars of war, the attitudes and emotions these last few weeks have swung between fear and acceptance.
We are worried. My parents live here. It's scary.
If Putin had wanted to attack, he would have already done so.
On the now quiet front line, the men and women of the Ukrainian army wait and watch. From the other side, the war could return at any moment. For Ricardo Marquina in Avdiivka, Ukraine, Elizabeth Chernev, VOA News.
Sierra Leone's President Julius Maada Bio has appointed English Premier League soccer star Antonio Rudga as brand Global Sierra Leone Football Ambassador. The president also presented Rudga with a diplomatic passport during a ceremony at the State House in Freetown. Rudga, a tough tackling central defender, is regarded as one of the best and toughest tackling central defenders in the world. He is a Sierra Leonean German who plays for the Chelsea Football Club in England and for the German national team. Rudga has also launched the Antonio Rudga Foundation in Sierra Leone, which he says has 4 priorities for sports. They include infrastructure, education, inclusivity and literacy. VOA's Peter Claude spoke to Rudga in London in part 1 of this 2-part interview. He began by asking him about his trip to Sierra Leone and his role as a brand global football ambassador.
It was our idea for me and my team to do the first launching of the foundation. I think it would have a bigger impact if you do it on the ground in Sierra Leone. And launching the foundation, it's to me personally very important because it's not a one-man show. This is what I want to make very clear. It's not a one-man show. I don't want to come out there as a hero or something like this. No, I want people to join, and because I think with the more we are, the more we can create. This is what I believe in. And obviously on the foundation itself, I have 4 very important stuff that we are focusing on. That's number 1, sports education and in general education. Number 2 is sports infrastructure. And number 3, sports inclusivity. And the 4th one is literacy. This is 4 key points we are looking at.
Let's take them one after the other. You talked about education in general, and then sports education. Why that? Why are you so passionate about that?
Yeah, because I strongly believe that education is big key, because for me, the mindset, the head is the strongest weapon a human being have. So that's why it's, to me, very important. Unfortunately, people in the past, because we had the civil war and everything, so some people over there, we have to say it in real talk, are not well educated, cannot read, cannot write, or cannot speak proper English. So this is a very important thing, that because the youth is our future, so that's why it's very, very important to teach them.
And then talking about literacy, language, and digital and numeracy for especially the disabled and the vulnerable children. Why that?
It's not only about that, it's also women. That's also going to gender. It's because I went there to watch a game of amputees playing. You see the love they have, the passion they have, but unfortunately they have one arm less or one leg less, but still there's love for the game. So you have to always get them involved, and so you don't put them as outstanders. No, they also can be very, very important, and that's why.
You went there, you looked at some games about the disabled people playing. Sports infrastructure is developing, let's put it that way. How will your foundation help improve upon that?
Oh, it's like not only this, like how this comes to sports infrastructure. Like if they have better pitches, better coaches, and people who really actually like care about them for real, we can go ahead. We can go ahead, and that's why it's very important to have, first of all, the structure, then to have the people who show them, who have people who have experience, who teaches them, and because that's what they need. And but there is, like how I said, is you have to work together. You have to find together a solution.
That was VOA correspondent Peter Clotty speaking with Antonio Rudga, the newly appointed brand ambassador for Sierra Leone's football. We'll have part 2 of his interview tomorrow. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.